All right, good afternoon and welcome to Clayton County Virtual Graphic Novel Club. My name is Erica.
And I'm Roland.
And today we are presenting horror comics of DC. 2 weeks ago we did Marvel horror comics. So now we're just going to finish out Spooky Month with DC. And it's going to be a little bit like last time where one of us will be doing most of the talking. Both of these titles were where DC could showcase their, they already had the superhero thing going on. So now they were trying to showcase some of their scarier stuff. House of Mystery premiered in 1951 and House of Secrets in 1956. It literally took going the biblical lengths to introduce brothers Kane and Abel to the DC universe, each hosting their own horror anthology. Kane headlined House of Mystery, while Abel headlined House of Secrets. These series titles were joined by Tales from the Crypt. We all remember spooky skeletal guy with the creepy hair. Yeah, the Crypt Keeper, and Vault of Horror. Stories introduced Dracula and zombies, but as we said last week, it didn't last long with Marvel, and it surely didn't last long with DC, who had a even more stake in keeping their comics kid-friendly, because DC was the big man on the block at the time, whereas Marvel was more of a pulp fiction type of comic where they could get away with edgy detective stuff, a little bit more sexy, a little bit more edgy, a little bit more violent. DC could not get away with that. And so with the anti-horror backlash during the McCarthy era in the United States, they turned these titles into sci-fi and fantasy series. So House of Mystery and House of Secrets became places where House of Mystery, Kane and Abel faded into the background in House of Mystery and House of Secrets. And you had introduction of Martian Manhunter with the sci-fi and Eclipso with the fantasy. And actually, Eclipso is not even a character that's around anymore.
Actually, he is.
He's around, but he's not
the main character in Stargirl.
He is, that's right. But in the DC universe, he hasn't been around since.
Right, I had not heard of him.
He's, what was it? Infinite Crisis? Like, he kind of faded into the background there. And so there was a resurgence of horror, of course, in the late 1960s, and both houses returned to their chilling roots. And this is where you start getting some really frightening stories. So you got the introduction of Swamp Thing with House of Secrets. The cover that's here is a Dracula theme, but House of Secrets we'll see its cover later for Swamp Thing when we cover him. So you had the mossy hero, anti-hero, Swamp Thing, and there were other chilling stories beyond Swamp Thing. There was one that was a serum that could turn an ordinary man into a mindless strangler, and one that presented dangers of using black magic. There were all these like little side stories that you could tell, like these scary stories, but they always had a twist to them, or a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a message. Like all of them had that same different type of thing. Some of these stories included like the introduction of Swamp Thing, who ended up getting his own series, and another one who was a House of Mystery one, Andrew Bennett, who was a vampire struggling to control his bloodlust. He got his own series called I, Vampire. I feel like that was a TV show, but I may be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I saw it. Although it wasn't under Chilling, under their horror prints, which is interesting. It was under Vertigo, though. Vertigo. Yeah, which is, as we'll find out later, no longer with us. Rest in peace, 2020 Vertigo. That was one of the things DC lost. But some characters morphed into other series in the 70s and 80s across DC. Kane and Abel came back. If you know, Kane is actually one of Swamp Thing's nemesis that showed up a lot in the 70s. Abel also came back. We'll talk about them later. You had two witch sisters, Cynthia Mildred and Mordred, who hosted an anthology called The Witching Hour, you gave that one to me to read, the Wonder Woman Witching Hour came from this series. So DC does a lot of this. A lot of their stuff that was popular in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. In the 2000s, like around after 2010, after the New 52 era, they reintroduced a lot of these series back, and we'll talk about some of them later. They launched in the 90s with the new mature Vertigo. Vertigo is where they put all their mature stuff in. They launched House of Secrets again, and it ran for 25 issues in the late 90s. House of Mystery ran even longer into the 2008 through 2011. I'm sorry, even longer. It lasted till 2008. The Witching Hour, it had a 2011 issue, and I think it was like 11 issues that they did. Wonder Woman was one of those stories. So.
It was just a one shot.
It wasn't a one shot. It was several. It was like 11.
It's like a giant size.
Yeah, but it was like 11 issues put in. Like the entire thing together is giant size, but it was 11 different releases that they did. But yes, and it's an extra shot. I can read it on DC Infinite Universe, and it was about 11 issues that all put together. So that's just sort of the beginnings and the backgrounds of, again, the Comics Code came along. A lot of this stuff got sort of mellowed out, but 60s and 70s came along, and the Comics Code went out the window, and DC started producing some edgier things. Its counterpart Marvel was already doing that, so it had to keep up. And with that, get the introduction of some characters that are famously known to be a little bit on the scary side. First up, I mentioned them earlier, Cain and Abel. They both premiered actually in 1943 in Picture Stories from the Bible in the Old Testament, number 3. DC did have a series that basically was comic series of retelling of the Bible. But these two ended up getting their own House of Secrets, House of Mystery. Cain, as the Bible listed thousands of years ago, the first man born, Adam and Eve, is Cain, and he kills his younger brother, Abel. He's the first murderer in human history. And because of his introduction in such an abominable idea to mankind, Cain is cursed to walk the earth forever with a mark on his forehead. His hair sort of hides that mark, but he does have the mark.
And they also brought Kane back as a character in Lucifer.
We will get to that. Because a lot of these characters, like I said, they're all wrapped together. Right. Even Lucifer is wrapped into Sandman. Sandman is wrapped into the original House of Mystery. Sandman is a character that it goes back to Silver Age comics. Yes, so Dream, who we will talk about when we talk about Sandman, came into, did I get my, I don't know, Kane and Abel. Ooh, that is out of order. Let me go back to that. Yeah, because, or I'm missing a page. I don't have the front and back. Let me switch with you real quick. Okay, yes. So, Abel. So, Cain kills his brother, Abel. Yeah. And then we have Abel. Now, because he was murdered by his brother, he was brought into the dreaming realm and represents imagination, where he became a storyteller and was given, whereas Cain was cursed to walk the earth, he was given the opportunity to tell stories in House of Secrets to the living and through dream. And so the Prince of Stories knew that the tales of Abel's death would be told and retold for centuries to come, and as one of the few residents of dreaming back in the early days. So his stories were a little bit they were still spooky, but not kind of like the stories from House of Mystery. And we'll talk about both of those houses later because they're actually across the street from one another. One is on one side of the street and the other is on the other, but something happens to the House of Mystery to be able to show up when and where it's needed, whereas the House of Secrets is in more of it doesn't disappear and reappear and things like that. So there is Cain and Abel. All right, next on our list, do you want to cover Lucifer?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So here we have the character Lucifer. First appearance, Sandman, Volume 2, Number 4, April 1989. Basically, Lucifer is a story based on the archangel that rebelled in the kingdom of heaven in the Bible. Lucifer Morningstar was given hell as his own domain. After several thousands of years, he decided he no longer wanted to do what he believed was expected of him, and so he abandoned hell and retired to earth. Okay. At one point, Dream of the Endless entered hell, searching for the helm that had been stolen from him when he was in prison. And after Dream recovered his helm and slighted him, Morningstar threatened to destroy Dream. However, Lucifer eventually abandoned his lordship over hell, as he had ruled hell for 10 billion years. Over that time, he had basically manipulated the various demons of hell against each other, provided a place for dead mortals to be tormented, and led the war against heaven. But at some point during his rule, he had become bored with his existence. He became tired of the various stereotypes that mortals held of the devil, such as the idea that he purchased and traded for souls, which were largely untrue. He also resented the assumption that he caused the evils that humans did. He did not, in fact, have anything to do with the actions of the mortals who ended up there. He simply punished them. He had become tired of his reign over hell, felt it an unfair punishment that he should have to rule there forever simply because he once rebelled. These feelings were catalyzed when he was visited by Dream. Lucifer expelled all demons and damned souls from hell before locking hell's gates and handing over the key to hell to Dream of the Endless. So that's how they are so entwined.
Yes.
But if you know that Lucifer TV show, it basically it's loosely based on
this series.
Well, it goes into all of this, but it actually TV show is actually showing the time that he spends on Earth.
Yeah, just
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just trying to get away from it all.
I've never watched Lucifer, but I've always wanted to. And now that it's over and I can watch it like straight through, I may tune into it. But the series itself sounds like the graphic novel sounds really good.
Yeah, I've read a couple of the graphic novels. They were kind of into the TV series.
Yeah. And he is a dashing, debonair dresser there. All right, next on our list, we have Sandman, Dream of the Endless. Now, Sandman, there's currently a series being developed on Netflix with Sandman, and I'm excited to see that. But it's a personification of many DC characters. So we have the Sandman, Dream of the Endless in the middle there, which is the current one that everyone knows, like it's the Neil Gaiman one. But there were other Sandmans. There was Wesley Dobbs, premiered in 1939, Garrett Sanford, 1974, and then there's Dream, 1989. The original is Wesley Dobbs. He does have a protege that takes over for him when he dies. He's the Golden Age vigilante that wore a gas mask used a gun to put people to sleep. He was a member of the Justice Society and the All-Star Squadron, and would later be succeeded by his sidekick, Sandy. These all sound familiar because I feel like they were in Stargirl. But yes. Next on the list is Garrett Sanford, who also used the name fighting as a hero in the dream dimension. So we moved from him putting people to sleep as a crime fighter to someone who actually fights people in a dream, kind of like a character that we've met in the 1980s, Mr. Freddy Krueger himself. But this character is the one that is in the yellow and red. That ridiculous outfit there. But yes, that's the 1974 character. And then there is Dream of the Endless, the personification of dreaming, who we've been talking about, that is connected to Cain and Abel and Lucifer. Dream came into existence as a once sentient form, a life form capable of dreaming, appeared in our universe. Dream is one of the endless personification of the idea and concepts that we are tied to life and what is fated to be fulfilled and their functions until the universe ended and all life disappears from the cosmos. The endless are the children of time and of night, and night is the mother of at least dream, and the parents who predated all existence and have grown estranged and care for the little mortal world dream concerns himself with. So this is the Neil Gaiman dream. And he pops up all over what we're going to talk about there. Yes, you're only going to see him when you sleep. He does pop up, like I said, Sandman is where he is. Instead of him putting you to sleep, you meet him in your dreams, sort of like fighting evil in your dreams. Kane and Abel have encountered him, where the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets, we'll talk about that later. But these are the different dreams, the different Sandman. But the one that Netflix is going to be based off of is the Dream of the Endless, the scarier of them all.
Right. The other ones were more superheroes, whereas the Dream of the Endless is more of just a character.
What they said when
I mean, he's a hero character, but he's not a mortal superhero.
No, yeah. When Neil Gaiman rethought it in 1989, because they gave him the project of rethinking Sandman. Right. This is what he came up with. And it goes back to some of those old stories from House of Mystery, House of Secrets that he ties it all together beautifully, but we've seen him do that. He did it with Eternals when he reintroduced Eternals and retold the story of Eternals. Neil Gaiman is a master storyteller, and I can't wait to see the show because he's heavily involved. Yeah, he's heavily involved.
Next up, we have the Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing was created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson in 1972. I don't know if he was created in 72.
Well,
71.
His first appearance was in 71, but it wasn't written by these two.
Okay.
That appearance in House of his series creations were from these two.
Now, his series was a short-lived series and ended by DC before sales. And in 1982, director Craven made the film Swamp Thing. Wes Craven. Yeah. DC wanted to capitalize off of this release, so they re-released Swamp Thing with Saga of the Swamp Thing also in 1982. It almost failed, but DC brought in British comic book writer Alan Moore of Watchmen and V for Vendetta to take over the series. Moore rebooted the series with more horror and more adult themes. His series ran for 67 issues and ended in 1987. The Swamp Thing's backstory is as the botanist Alec Holland was transformed into the Swamp Thing after he was killed in the explosion, and his body was sent deep into the muck of the very swamp he had been researching. This transformed Holland into the physical avatar of a cosmic force known as the Green, which sustains all plant life on Earth and the emissary of the Parliament of the Trees. Yeah.
And his first appearance was 1971. That Alec Holland was created in 72 because the original guy was not. He was not even of this timeline. He was like it was like late 1800s Louisiana, that particular Swamp Thing. But it kept some of the similar themes. And I'm gonna let you talk about the next one too, because they coincide.
In close relation to the Swamp Thing, who is the avatar of the Green, Here we have Bernard Buddy Baker, who is known as Animal Man. He is the chosen protector of the red, which is the force that connects all animal life on Earth. In his teens, Buddy went hunting in the Adirondack Mountains, and when he returned home, he had changed. Whatever it was, something in the woods had connected him to what is variously referred to as the red, the life web, or the morphogenetic field, the force that binds together every living animal on Earth. Encountering some escaped animals from a nearby zoo, Buddy discovered that in the presence of an animal, he was able to absorb its special abilities. He was now the man with animal powers. He is semi-retired with his wife and children in the suburbs. He is also a member of Justice League International. He has also died many times and been reincarnated as a hybrid animal human.
Mhm.
And
And
that's Animal Man.
his first appearance was in Strange Adventures, which was interesting. It was more sci-fi. Yeah. Good old Hellblazer. Next on our list, we have John Constantine. He premiered in Saga of Swamp Thing number 37 in 1985. He was one of good old Alan Moore's creations. When it comes to dark arts, this is the guy you need to see. He wields dark arts to save his soul, but also the earth itself. He's best ocular private investigator with a bad attitude and a chain smoker, to say the least. His help has always been known to come with a price. He and Swamp Thing aren't friends, but they aren't enemies either. They need each other pretty much. He's a con man and a grifter whose past has a body count. His moral compass is gray as it can be, and he's an expert sorcerer and magician. But he's an also accomplished liar and thief, known for his vices and self-loathing, on again, off again, death wish. His abilities have afforded him the opportunity not only to cheat death, but to also trick the forces that govern heaven and hell, meaning he has no shortage of enemies either. John's blood is demonically tainted after a transfusion from a demon, Nergal. I think that was in the show too, which left him with heightened physical resistance and significantly decelerated aging process. His blood leaves him also immune to many illnesses and provides defense against certain types of occult creatures, such as occult creatures, such as vampires. And he is the current leader of, is he the current leader of Justice League Dark? I think he is. I think he's back.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, he's back to leading them because he gave it up for a little while, but he's currently leading Justice League Dark. But he did not, I don't know, I forget when he got his own series. I think it was in the late 80s. I think it was like 1989 that they actually released a Hellblazer series, but it didn't run that long.
But let's not forget, we also had a movie out, Keanu Reeves.
I did not forget that. It's, as much as it gets bashed, I thought it was good. It's a good movie. Yeah, and John is currently, well, he's not currently on there, but his character was on Legends for several seasons. But I think now he's playing a new character, so John is somewhere resting. One can only hope.
Good old Jesse Custer.
Oh.
All right, so now before I start talking about, let me just say this was a TV series that I had no idea it was a comic book, and I watched the TV series first. I learned it was a comic probably halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And when I tell you this was a wild ride. Yeah. Okay, so Jesse Custer is a preacher who basically he merged with an escaped entity from heaven. And this helps him develop certain abilities. Along with his ex-girlfriend Tulip and an Irish vampire named Cassidy, three embark on a journey to find God himself. So his story begins when he was a toddler. His parents were kidnapped by Jody and TC. These were two individuals that worked for his
Mother's
family. They basically took the family to the Langel's house, where Mary LaAngel, Christina's mother, ordered John to marry Christina and said that they would raise Jesse as a man of God. Jesse's father tried to escape with the family 2 years later, but was executed. This left his mother in misery, and then she tried to escape, but was also killed by TC and Joker. Jesse was raised by his grandmother until he escaped and began his own journey. He fell in love in California with Tulip, and they began a life together. But his grandmother was not finished with him. She sent Jody and TC after him, and Jesse had no fight left and had to come home and become a preacher. This led to him drinking heavily. One night he decided he was fed up with the people of Anvil and told them so the next morning in church service. It was here that he was beaten up, and when he woke up the next day, he woke up with the intent to basically preach a sermon to the church about forgiveness. But before he could give the sermon, basically the entity titled named Genesis basically honed in on him because of something, because of his energy, basically honed in on him and merged with him. And it did this because it was running from, I guess, the archangels that were chasing it, but it's actually more powerful than the archangels. So once Jesse merged with Genesis, he found that he had the ability to force people to do anything. Now, when he didn't ever have to give his speech to the people of the town of Anvil, because when the merging happened, there was a blast that occurred, and the radius basically took out everybody in the town. He was the only one left standing. The TV, I'm not going to go too much into the TV show because it's a lot. When I say it's a lot, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, they tried to tell him, the angels basically tried to tell him, hey, you're going to have to let this entity come back to heaven with us. And he even had the power to tell the angels, no, you're going to go sit down. Yeah. And they did it, and they realized that they could not fight Genesis. Genesis would have to come back to heaven on its own. And it never did.
It did not, because him and Preacher, the vampire, and Tulip go on a quest. Yeah. But it seems like a good series. I said I would have to check it out. It was crazy because the grandmother kidnapping him, but she got what she wanted, but it ended up.
Well, you have to see. You have to see. It's one of those. It's almost like a West Virginia dynamic where the grandmother thinks they run everything, and you're gonna if you're gonna inbreed, you're gonna inbreed because I say so. That's how we keep this coming. Right, that was one of those type of scenarios. That's why the father was killed, because he was an outsider.
Yep. So, next on our list is Boston Brand, aka Dead Man. His first appearance again in Strange Adventures, 1967. Boston Brand was a circus aerialist that was murdered in his prime. He haunts Earth in search of justice, and when he died, his spirit was granted the power to possess any living being by the Hindu god Ramakrishna. And it kept wanting to correct that. And I was like, nope, it's right, because they did not want to offend anybody at DC. So Boston could search for his killer and receive a measure of peace. He is now a literal dead man, and he was both a ghost and a DC superhero. He's worked with Batman, and he's also Specter and the Sentinels of Magic. He is a member of the Justice League Dark. He goes solo, and he also partners with and he continues to haunt the earth, persecuting the innocent and working to balance the scales of justice. He's also been a member, he's worked with the Justice League too, before Justice League Dark was created. He's able to possess human bodies for a limited time to be able to communicate with humans, and he can communicate with spirits and travel across dimensions.
I want to say to our listening audience that Dead Man does not persecute the innocent, but he protects them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just want to get that clear before we got any complaint
My
about
notes.
persecuting innocents.
My notes sit. Yep.
All right. So our next character basically is a character that's big as all outdoors, and this is the Specter. The Specter is the divine spirit of vengeance, the powerful agent of the presence or God, bound to a human host to curb his power and offer guidance. Over the years, his hosts have been James Corrigan, Hal Jordan, and Crispus Allen. And if you want to believe TV, in the Arrowverse, your boy Green Arrow,
yeah,
actually became the host of the Specter in the end of his run. That's how they ended his series. Some background is when Lucifer Morningstar rebelled against God, he did not do so alone. Several angels joined him in his rebellion, and when they lost their battle, they were cast down the hill, becoming what we now call demons. One of those demons was known as Astar, and he went to the gates of heaven and begged forgiveness for joining Lucifer's rebellion. The presence then chose for Astar to become a vessel for one of his divine aspects, in this case, the divine wrath. The divine wrath combined with Astar to form a new being, the Specter. In the mid-20th century, the Specter bonded with the spirit of murdered 1940s police officer Jim Corrigan, creating a bond between the human ghost and the eternal spirit and becoming a crusader for those seeking ultimate justice. Since then, the Specter has bonded with other human hosts, most notably former Green Lantern Hal Jordan, as well as murdered Gotham City cop Crispus Allen. This spirit of vengeance has used his supernatural abilities to bring about bloody justice to those who have committed heinous crimes. Being an agent of the presence, his power levels are quite truly off the charts. If you are just an average criminal just looking to make a score, pray you never run into the Specter. Batman will break your bones, but the Specter will break your soul.
And he does that. Yeah. All right, next on our list and last of the characters we're going to cover today is Raven. Raven, who is a member of the Teen Titans. She is born Rachel Roth to a human mother and a demonic father. Raven's entire life has been a balancing act between light and darkness. And unwilling to succumb to her demonic heritage, her father is Trigon, who disguised himself as a human, married her mother, and then when I think mother got pregnant, he revealed himself to who he truly was, which then drove the mother crazy, and she was put into an asylum. And so she, to control her demonic heritage, she studied tirelessly to master her emotions, because when she gets angry, that picture on the left happens and she will blow everything up. She studies the mystical arts and becomes a hero despite what destiny has for her, because she's a child of a demon. She has been sought after by many different groups to unleash that demonic side of herself. The demon is not so easily abated though, and every once in a while it shows itself. Her father is a constant threat in her mind because he's always trying to break out of his prison, and he looms over and whatever team she's been a part of. So he's always been trying to use Raven to break himself out because he needs his daughter to break himself out of this prison. But she has psychic powers, shadow manipulation, supernatural knowledge, telekinesis, teleportation, flight, healing factor, and emotional manipulation. So yeah, she is not someone to be messed with, but she is a member of the Teen Titans. She's been a member of the Justice League, and I think she's also been a member of Justice League Dark. Yeah, all three, and some other groups, but those were her main three. Titans is where she was born. That is characters, spooky characters for this month. Now we're gonna get into some teams.
Oh,
first on the list, your fave.
Their first appearance, 1963, My Greatest Adventure, number 8. All right, so born of experiments and accidents, and also outcast from society, the Doom Patrol occupies the weirder corners of DC's universe. Dr. Niles Calder, otherwise known as the Chief, took it upon himself to bring a group of 3 metahuman individuals together and convince them that their perceived disabilities were, rather than a cause for self-pity, best viewed as an opportunity to save the world. These metahumans were Cliff Steele, a man who had died when his body was destroyed in a car wreck, only to be saved when his brain was placed into a robot body. Rita Farr, an all-star athlete and actress who was exposed to chemicals that allowed her to change her size and shape. And Larry Trainer, who became charged with radioactive energy that allowed him to project a negative energy soul from his body after wrecking his airplane.
Is that the one that's invisible?
He ain't invisible.
He's
He
not.
look like Deadpool up under there.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just that he's radioactive, so
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember the show, and I was like,
oh yeah, he's not invisible.
Yeah.
In 1989, Grant Morrison took over writing the title and changed the face of comics forever. Morrison is a self-described chaos magician who turned the title into a Dadaist narrative art experiment that explored the crazy nature of chaos. We were introduced to new characters, such as Crazy Jane, a woman with 64 different personalities, each of which had a different superpower, as well as Danny the Street, a sentient transvestite street able to change its appearance and teleport to various cities. This era also saw the arrival of the Scissormen, a group of villains who existed outside of reality, Mr. Nobody, and his Brotherhood of Dada, a nihilistic reincarnation of the original Brotherhood of Evil. This series ran until 2011.
This one was a lot darker.
Yeah. Well, I think the TV series basically show it dips into those dark
things
corners, because one of the things is like you get a full view of Crazy Jane's 64 different personalities.
Yeah.
And they each personality has a different superpower.
Yep.
That's the crazy thing. She can put on each one of them.
When I was doing my research on this one, I read that and I was like, because it talked about how Morrison would go into exploring this dark, because the original show was more of, think about sci-fi, like.
No, it was dark.
Now the 60s.
Now watch this though, because the reason why it was dark is because what you find out later is that the Chief, Miles Calder, he's the one who made these people have these accidents.
Oh my God.
That he calls.
Okay, that's a different darkness.
He calls Cliff Steele to crash so that he can harvest his brain. What he did, he studied him and realized his life was in shambles. He had all this stuff going on. He basically killed Cliff to take his brain and put him into this robot.
So yeah, because when Morrison took over in 1989, everybody pretty much on Doom Patrol was either dead by that point, because I think Infinite Crisis had taken place.
Right.
Robot Man was left, and Woman had walked away. Mm-hmm. Her and one of the characters were divorced by this point. Beast Boy was a part of Teen Titans.
You know what? So in the comics, the other members of Doom Patrol were Beast Boy was a member of Doom Patrol. Cyborg was a member of Doom Patrol. In the current TV series, Danny the Street is not a street anymore; it's an ice cream truck.
Yes, because they said the new series, he's ice cream truck, and I was like, oh, okay.
And so they introduced Niles Calder's daughter, who is basically her mother is. I don't want to call her. She's not a spiritual being. She's an elder being of the earth, like Native American energy. Yeah, she is that. She is over hundreds of years old, and so his daughter, who everybody treats like she's some little fragile 11 or 12-year-old, she's actually 80 to 90 years old. She understands this, but nobody else does. So it's a weird dynamic in the story.
Oh yeah, and Bumblebee and Mal.
Yeah, Bumblebee and Mal. Had actually
They were a member, but by the 80s, I think they left too.
Right.
Everybody leaves. All right. Next on our list is Justice League Dark. We've mentioned quite a few of their characters: Swamp Thing, John Constantine, Raven. First appearance, 2011, when Justice League Dark was created. Justice League was faced with a foe that they were ill-equipped to handle because a lot of the Justice League characters are superheroes that can't deal in magic. Superman, Wonder Woman, even though she lives around magic, she can be affected by magic.
Well, she's the one character in DC who bounces between the two squads.
Yeah, because she, like I said, she's a demigod, so magic is all around her. But Superman cannot deal in magic. I don't think Flash either. There's quite a few. So villain Enchantress was separated from her human host, June Moon, and wreaked havoc on Earth, and the Justice League could do nothing about it. They did everything they could, and Justice League couldn't do anything about it. So they sent this team in, and the original members included Deadman, John Constantine, Madame Xanadu, and Shade the Changing Man, and Zatanna. They pulled her back into her host body, and that's when the Justice League acknowledged that they need a team to handle the occult. So the adventures focus on exorcism of demons, purging of ancient evils, and the exploration of the supernatural and the unexplained. Also, the understanding of elemental forces that drive the world itself. The current members are John Constantine, Detective Chimp, Dr. Fate, Ray Ragman, and Etrigan, and Zatanna.
Let me say something. Ragman actually was on Arrow.
He was?
Yes.
I didn't finish that.
He was one of those that had when they brought in Crazy Dog, Renee Ramirez, and all them.
I stopped watching that season 5.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, Ragman was one of the characters that they brought out.
Okay.
And I can't remember what happened to him. I can't remember if he died or something else happened to him. And then you have another character up in Shade.
Shade the Changing Man. Yeah.
He just died in last week's Stargirl, or dissipated basically after he
I need to finish watching those. And also Swamp Thing is a member, but he is not a consistent member because he belongs to the green. And if it does not deal with the green, AKA the plants of the earth, he has no interest in it. Right. All right. This next part and the last part we're going to talk about today is series. Now, these series that we're going to talk about are not necessarily tied to there are some series that were tied to the DC family, like a lot of the Batmans. I didn't cover those because eventually we will cover Batman at some point in time in this graphic novel club. But I focused on series that are sort of standalones that DC has printed under Vertigo, or what is now DC Black, for their new entity. And so first on the list.
Dollhouse Family.
Yeah. This sounds absolutely frightening. I just want to know, I was sitting there I don't know if I want to read this.
Started reading the byline, yes. Yeah. So basically the main character, Alice, receives an antique dollhouse from her auntie on her 6th birthday. And over time, she realizes that the house and its occupants are alive.
Again, alive. There are things living in this house.
So this is under the imprint of Hill House Comics, which is DC Comics' recently launched horror line. And it's under the direction of legendary horror writer Joe Heath.
Do we know who his daddy is?
Sounds like Stephen King.
Exactly. He changed his name.
Yeah,
he went by his mother's maiden name so that people wouldn't know who he was.
Oh, Hill enlisted writers to come up with fantastic horror stories for Hill House, illustrated by Peter Gross and written by M.R. Carey, the Dollhouse Family starts simply with the main character receiving the antique dollhouse for her 6th birthday. It's a story about a tiny family living inside the haunted dollhouse that comes into the possession of the young girl, manages to build an increasing sense of dread that is sure to keep you up at night. What follows is an unexpected descent into terror and trauma that transcends time and space. And so these stories are basically monthly. They leave you with a cliffhanger at each story. So currently there's 6 issues out that have been produced between 2019 and 2020.
Yes, and I think from what I read, they will continue it. Probably. I read a couple of pages that were online, and I was like,
I probably won't read this one because there's a dollhouse in my house that the previous owners left.
Oh, okay. Don't you read? You leave this one alone. Yeah, just leave this one alone. Yeah, I said I would pick it up and read it, but yeah. Okay, next on our list is American Vampire. This series, first ran, it started in 2010. It was, it's an Eisner Award-winning series, and there's a reason why. First of all, the art alone is amazing. You can see the different, let's see, there are 3 different covers here. The series first ran from 2010 to 2013 with this first American Vampire Volume 1. Volume 2 there is in the middle, ran for a year, 2014 to 2015. It ran for 11 issues. And the last volume just finished, American Vampire 1976, ran from December 2020 to October 2021 for 10 issues. And the graphic novel for that is about to come out because I just ordered it, and I'm excited about that. But this was one of the ones that I actually read when it was being released in the 2010s. And it tells the story of this guy here in the middle, Mr. Skinner Sweet is his name. He's an American vampire. The series imagines vampires. It was written by Scott Snyder, Raphael Arbouqui, and Stephen King. Stephen King actually wrote up until probably the last of those 34 issues. He wrote, so that first volume was written a lot by Stephen King. Albuquerque. Yes. So Sweet is an American vampire, and this story really shows he was created in the late 1800s in the Wild Wild West. Don't really know his entire creation story. You know his entire creation story, but you don't know what he was like before as a human being. He was created by vampires in the American West. And what they created was this new American bloodline of vampires. The first new species is a notorious outlaw, Sweet himself, who wakes from death after being infected to find he has become a new kind of vampire, something stronger, faster than what came before. He's impervious to sunlight and with a new set of strengths and weaknesses. The series follows Sweet throughout the decades of American history, and he creates only one offspring throughout that entire time, and that's book 1. Book 1 tells his origin story, and then it tells him making this one offspring. And from that, because it's not, he's never created an offspring. He's never had any pity on anyone. But he has pity on this woman, Pearl Jones, who's an aspiring actress in the 1920s Hollywood, who's attacked by a group of European vampires that are hiding in Hollywood. So think of early Hollywood. They were basically vampires, according to this story. And they loved the attraction of the young women who were coming to Hollywood, and they would have these parties and they would gorge. When I say gorge, I mean gorge. The book is not for the faint of heart. Okay. and but she is saved by him because he comes across her body that has been dumped somewhere. She's still alive after they've basically almost killed her. Almost, amongst other things. And so he creates her, and he turns and helps her seek her revenge. So basically teaches her the ways of vampires. And let's just say Pearl becomes like, he's stronger, faster, and better than the European vampires. She's a product of him, and her revenge is sweet. I mean, you know, yeah, it's a good read. Those first 34 issues. I read volume 2 up until a certain point. It's good too, but volume 1 is very good. And it just follows him throughout history, and I'm guessing 76 is going to be just as good also. But yeah, great series. It is published under Vertigo. It was published under Vertigo, but Vertigo was shut down in 2020 with budget cuts. And it's under DC's new Black label. So they continued the series. That's how important it was to DC. As you can see, Vertigo is on the rest of them, but Black label is on this one. So can't wait to read the third one.
House of Mystery, House of Secrets. Actually, for the House of Mystery, there have been 2 House of Mystery series. The original premiered in 1951, with the storyteller being Kane, possibly history's first murderer. The second House of Mystery spun out of the pages of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. In this story, Morpheus, the Lord of the Dreaming, returned to his domain after almost a century of imprisonment and stumbled to the House of Mystery's door, where Kane and Abel nursed him back to health. After Morpheus's return, the house stuck mostly to the dreaming, where Kane frequently entertained other supernatural storytellers. The house itself is an interdimensional way station where people meet to exchange drinks and stories. Some people end up stuck there, working to serve the regular patrons and listen to the stories. Each story has unnerving mysteries to it, as does the house itself. This may very well be the best haunted house story in comics. John Constantine won possession of the house in a card game, but after the Justice League Dark faced Blight, John lost ownership to Zatanna. Eventually, the house called out to John Constantine to return to the property, and he reclaimed ownership. The House of Mystery.
Now, across the street from there is the House of Secrets, home of Abel. Well, I said earlier, Kane's brother. They live across the street from each other. Whereas the House of Mystery can travel due to magic, the House of Secrets does not. It stays right there in Vermont, where it's always been. Abel is the storyteller at this house. It is not known how long Abel has occupied the building, but he's considered to be immortal, so it's fair to assume that Abel has resided in the house for many years. The architectural is indeterminate because it changes periodically. So how the House of Mystery moves around, rooms move around in this house. Dimensions, you can walk through a door and be in a different dimension, different time period, things like that. So it's constantly shifting. You never enter the same room twice. The house cannot be perceived though through technology, scans, or mystical surveillance, due to the fact that so many stories were inspired and relayed within the parlors of the old home. The House of Secrets is a focal location at the crossroads into the dreaming. The Dream King Morpheus was able to access the House of Secrets at will without manifesting inside the subconscious mind of sleeping individuals. So basically, this is where we dream. When Neil Gaiman's Sandman took over, that's how he explained the House of Secrets. It's where we dream, which is interesting. Yeah. Oh, this one. I did start reading this one.
Yeah. The Low Wood.
Yeah.
Now, this is a fairly new series, started December 2019 and ran through June 2020. The series was produced by Hill House, written by Carmen Maria Machado, basically the author of Her Body and Other Parties and In the Dream House. The Lolo Woods explores body horror down paths yet unexplored in comics. It will leave readers searching for their way back home and terrified of what they may find changed upon their return. When Elle and Octavia wake up in a movie theater with no memory of the last few hours of their lives, the two teenage dirtbags begin a surreal and terrifying journey to discover the truth about the strange town that they call home.
Yeah, this one is another creepy one. I did read a few the beginning pages of this, of them waking up in the theater and questioning, and the guy's like has no clue what they're talking about. But there's some strange stuff in Pennsylvania. This the Lolo Woods in this Pennsylvania.
Thing is, they're only missing the last few hours of their lives, so they got to remember all the other crazy stuff that's been happening in town before they come.
Actually, no, they're not missing this the last few hours of their lives. It seems that way when they wake up, but
they're missing everything from before the time they step in.
Yeah. Like I said, it's super creepy. I read the first few pages and I was like, oh, okay. Next on our list is The Conjuring, based on the Conjuring movies. This one was really fun too. I actually want to read this, and I think it's on DC Infinite Universe. It is, because I could see issue number 1. This is based on the Warner Brothers Studios movie of The Conjuring. When I think in June, The Devil Made Me Do It, that particular Conjuring, which is Conjuring 3, premiered. Yes, they wanted something to go along with it. So they signed DC to, because DC is an entity of Warner Brothers, to do a limited series prequel to the movie, The Conjuring the Lover. This is the first story, and it features stories straight from the world of the paranormal investigators of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, whether you believe that these people, they are actual real people, Ed and Lorraine, they're real people that existed, and some of them think of them as a con artist, and others think of them as lifesavers. It depends on who you believe. But this was written by David Leslie Johnson Murdoch, who penned the screenplay for the movie, the new film, and The Conjuring 2, and comic book writers Rex Ogle. Jessica is a college freshman returning to campus after winter break and struggling with poor grades and regrets sleeping with a boy she wished she hadn't. As if that wasn't enough, Jessica's also realizing that something evil is watching her and targeting her, but she doesn't know why. Again, this is a prequel to the movie, and if you watch the movie, you may understand the prequel to this, because all of my research led me nowhere because I don't watch Conjuring movies. So yeah, but it ties in directly with the movie that came out. But DC did say that they are going to be ongoing with this series, so this will not be the only one. I think they're trying to make there are objects that are throughout the movies that Lorraine and Ed like mystical, magical objects. So I think they're going to do a series on that, depending on how this goes. Yes.
All right. So to wrap things up, we have DC's answer to the Marvel zombie plague.
Yes.
DC's answer is Deceased. It's a harrowing and brilliant tale of terror taken to the extreme. The zombie virus is created when Darkseid tries to finally obtain the anti-life equation, hacking into Cyborg's mother box and even capturing the Black Racer, who is the incarnation of death, who slays the new gods. Things go terribly wrong, and as Cyborg opens a boom tube to Earth, the virus comes with him and spreads into every screen on Earth. Deceased series was written by Tom Taylor, and it premiered back in May 2019.
And since then, it has given us Deceased, Unlikable, which is because Deceased was not dealt with. They enlisted the anti-heroes. You kind of like your Suicide Squad,
right.
The Unlikables, to come and those who were left, because not too many heroes left. The Unlikables come to try to take it. And then this print here with Planet Dead. with Superman
Oh,
covered
yeah.
in zombies.
Right.
That is the third installation of this series, which just premiered 2021. So yeah, it was popular. Deceased was. I have not picked it up yet, but I will.
Yeah, that might be one. I will read
Yeah,
that.
we have this one. We have Deceased. We have the first
I'm
one.
gonna read this before I read the whole Darkest Night series. That's
Oh,
too
okay.
long.
And that's all we have for today for Spooky Month, the end of Spooky Month here. And if you want to check out our research and do some research for yourself, please feel free to check this out. Next up, Roland, what we got next? Let's see. Oh, yeah, well, before we get there, just want to let you guys know you can still check out material and items from Comics Plus. A lot of the stuff we talked about today is on Comics Plus. So if you want to read it for free, use your Clayton County Library card to access comics on your tablet, computer, or smartphone, and you can download them for offline access, meaning you don't have to be connected. You can just read as you go. So if you have a Clayton County Library card, please come and sign up and get access to Comics Plus. Now what is next?
Indigenous Heroes of DC and Marvel coming up November 9th, 2021 at 4 p.m. You can see us at our web link, https tinyurl.com cclsgnc.
Yes, and this is the second to last because the last one will be at the end of November, and then we will be done for the year. But in anticipation for 2022, we want your submissions. So if you have any ideas that you want to shoot our way of what you want us to cover, please send those our way. And if you want to check out stuff we've already covered, you can look in the archives on our YouTube channel and look at some of the other older stuff that we've covered. But if there's somebody you don't see on that list of who we've covered and you want to see us cover it, please reach out to us. You can do it through the YouTube page. You can email us. You can do it. You can call us too if you want to. But there are various different ways to interact with us. But yes, ClaytonPL.org. Hit the contact. We are at the Forest Park branch, but you can email us at any time. Our contact information is on the contact page. And again, also the YouTube channel, you can put comments. But yeah, we're getting to the end of the year. So we want to hear your ideas and we want to see what you guys want to see and cover it possibly. But we'll see you on November 9th at 4 p.m.
Peace.